Hello, everyone. My name is David Grindle. I'm the Executive Director at USITT, and I'd like to welcome you today to our community conversation as we have a panel of professionals from the Asian American community who are discussing their careers. USITT is happy today to have our moderator, Audrey Hoo. Audrey is the Director of Production at Berkeley Rep in California. And thank you, Audrey, and thank you to all of our panelists today. Take it away.
Hi, friends. It is such an honor, and I'm so glad to just spend time with these amazing human beings. In our kind of pre-meeting, we talked about, I'm just at a coffee shop really hanging out with some of the coolest people and having a conversation. So I'm glad that you can join us. My name is Audrey, and I'm calling in from the ancestral and unceded lands of the Alani people, also known as Berkeley, California. I use she, her pronouns. And as David mentioned, I am a production manager. I grew up in Singapore and came to the US about almost 20 years ago now to do my master's degree. And I ended up staying in this country and learning so much about what it means to be a Singaporean, Chinese, Asian in the United States. And I thought we'll start it off by popcorning it over, and everybody's going to take a moment to introduce themselves. I also wanted to say it's the 8th day of the Lunar New Year, so I'm wearing my red for some good luck. And with that, I'll popcorn it over to Shaminda.
Thank you, Audrey. So delighted to be here with all of you as well. My name is Shaminda, he, him, calling in from the lands of the Wappinger and Quinnipiac peoples in what is now Wallingford, Connecticut. I am identify as a South Asian immigrant. My family moved to this country when I was 1.5, so essentially grew up here my whole life. And my parents are from Sri Lanka, even though I was born in Zambia, Africa. And now I am the chair of technical design and production at the Yale School of Drama, as well as director of production at Yale Repertory Theater. And again, delighted to be here with all of you, and want to offer also a belated happy birthday to Amith, who celebrated yesterday, as I throw it over to him. Take it away, Amith.
Oh, thank you, Shaminda. Hi, my name is Amith Chandrashaker. I'm a lighting designer based out of New York. He, him, his, my pronouns. As I mentioned, I'm in Brooklyn, the land of the Lenape. I am Indian American, if I had to sort of pick one. My parents are from Hyderabad, India, which is southern India, and they immigrated in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was born in Brooklyn. So I've grown up and spent my whole life in the Brooklyn, New York, New Jersey area. I'm going to pass it off to Elisheba.
Hey everyone, I'm Elisheba Ittoop, she, her, hers. I'm living on Lenape land, Manhattan, Upper Manhattan. I guess a bit about me. I moved from the UK when I was a baby, so I don't know how much moving I did, but my family moved us from London to like kind of all over the South for a while. We moved to Virginia Beach. That was where we first were. Then we were in Eastern North Carolina, and then the Raleigh, North Carolina area until I went off to college. So, you know, my family is from Kerala, South India, but also, you know, we're British, but also maybe I consider myself Southern the most. So I very much embrace the title of like third culture kid. Yeah, and I'm a sound designer and composer. Let's pass to Makiko.
Hello, I feel so cool being in this room with you guys. I'm a cool kid. I'm Mikiko Suzuki McAdams, and I'm sitting here in Mansi, Lenape, and Wapingar land, and northern Manhattan. I might be neighbor to you, Elisheba. I didn't actually really realize. Yes, I'm a freelancing set designer based in New York, and born and grew up in Japan, and then moved to Seattle 28 years ago to learn theater and set design. And then I realized I want to go grad school, and I went grad school on the East Coast. And then I thought I was sort of supposed to move to New York after. That's what I wasn't thinking enough, but or I never thought I can have the career in New York or United States, but I just did the job to pay my bills, and one after another, and then about almost 20 years later, I'm still here. And it's difficult these days. I think about what's my identity. I'm not Asian American. I'm Japanese citizen, non-American citizen. I cannot vote, which is really frustrating. But yet, more than half of my life is in the United States, and it's interesting things to think about. Yes, I am probably in an immigrant category, but yet I feel like I'm still Japanese. So, and I currently teach drafting at the Yale School of Drama. And Shelley.
Hey, I'm Cherie. I'm a stage manager by trade, now a voice actor. I grew up in Singapore, although I'm originally from Texas. So same as Audrey, of growing up somewhere else in this tiny island, moving to the U.S., to Pennsylvania, Texas, San Diego, now in New York. Yeah, in Brooklyn, and that's me.
Just to say that Cherie and I did not know that we each other grew up in Singapore, so it was a pleasant surprise. So I wanted to start with the term Asian. What does it even mean? Why are we, I think that was one interesting thing for me coming from Singapore to the US, is that, you're kind of grouped in this terminology. So what does it bring up for you? What questions do you have, and what do you think? Elisheba looks like she's
Well, it's just the first thing that when you ask that, it's well, I think in theater many times people with good intentions but with a cringy impact, it means Asian is pan Asian. We should bring Asians onto this show. But it's well, what does that mean to you? I remember talking to y'all the other week about being brought onto a show where, they were looking for a South Asian sound designer composer. And I was oh, I think you're literally looking for me. But then other people started throwing out names of people who are, maybe from Thailand or Japan. And it was oh, you guys, he specifically said South Asian. Oh, we're thinking Pan Asian. So I don't know, when that question for me brings up an immediate well, I know what Asian means, but yeah, I see it misused a little bit. But I think people are well intended.
Yeah, I agree with what Elisheba said greatly, and I identify with it. You know what? My parents never really referred to themselves as Asian, and all growing up, it was never really a term. It was a foreign term for them as Indian immigrants to be known as Asian. So it was always this academic, or when you're in school, you have to fill out one of 3 boxes on whatever thing you're filling out. But even recently, I think I was filling out something just the other day, and they asked me it was Asian or whatever. I was that's I guess the closest, but that was never a term that I grew up identifying with through my parents, because they never really use it. We were just Indian, and that's what it was. So it's this other thing that I feel if I had to pick a box, I have to sort of like dip my toe in, but it's definitely not something that I could really define or identify with.
Yeah, I would offer the same. Similar experiences. It both felt foreign and, but also in some respects, it evoked a sense of belonging in a life where I was looking to belong somewhere. Particularly South Asian. When that came about, which also for me wasn't from my upbringing. Right, we identified first and foremost as Sri Lankan. But now reflecting back, it's it's the same as Elisheba offered. There's such a lack of specificity to it, like there is with all of the terms, people of color, BIPOC, Latinx. What they're trying to do is offer some solidarity of a common experience. At the same time, it does further marginalize us because it erases so much of that specificity, so much of that difference that makes us human, that makes us special. Even within South Asian has been a struggle because by and large it is associated with Indian, and that's what most people think. And I'm confused for Indian all the time, right? And that's something I had to just grow up with and assimilate to, that I can't educate the whole world on what my tiny island country is, except for one person at a time. And also the irony of that word to me finally is just that it trying to bring people together. It does represent, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 5 billion people in this world, right? And that in and of itself is a great irony for me. If you're going to try to represent that many people with just one word, why are we just not using human at a certain point?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Like growing up in Singapore, no one was like, "Oh, the Asian friend." It's like, "Oh, the Thai friend. Oh, the Vietnamese friend. Oh, she's from Indonesia." It was so specific. And then coming here, it's like, "Oh, the Asian chick in our math class." And you're like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah.
I wanted to make space for Makiko too. You have any thoughts?
Like when you grow up, well, I grew up in Japan, so that even I live here 28 years. American context of race division, the divide, is confusing to me, and then yes, I feel like East Asians are easily can say we are Asians. And then that's I think somewhat privileged among Asian people or Asian American people to me, because that seems quite powerful to say yeah, I'm Asian, and then but there's so many types of Asians, and then I feel that way, and I'm so fortunate to grow up as a majority. That's a huge difference to me too. And so that's, I might be not answering the question, but that's it comes to my mind when I hear those conversations about what is Asian.
Yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing that happened in my journey here to the U.S. is, people start guessing. They start trying to guess where you're from. So, the one memory that sticks to my mind is I walked into the store and the guy just guessed every single country. To his credit, he named almost every single country in Southeast Asia except Singapore. So he was like, "You're Thai. No, you're Malaysian. No, you're Indonesian." I'm like, keep going. And, it was fascinating if I take myself out of my body and just, wow, this is an interesting interaction, right? And something you said, Shaminda, really resonated with me, which is when I walk into a tech or into a theater and there's another Asian person, there are a lot of warm feelings, because it's I know this person knows. I know this person knows my treats and my snacks, and we can talk about some stuff that's I really love that feeling of being part of a community. And maybe it's a part of a community that can actually identify, oh, this person is from Singapore and has this experience that's different from mine. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this term Asian?
I just want to echo what you said. I hate that game when people are like, "Oh, where are you from?" And they're like, "Where are you really from?" And my favorite, people ask me on the train sometimes, and my favorite answer is Texas.
Mine is Iceland. It really messes with people and it stops the conversation because it's not a game. It's like, because a game is like, it's fun for both of you. And it's like, this isn't fun for me. So I'm a little passive aggressive about it now.
So one of the conversations, so we had 45 minutes last 2 weeks to try and talk it out to see what popped for us. One of the things that came up was this idea of representation in a room. And I think, Elisheba, you kind of opened this of, we're doing a play about Korean people. Let's pick a couple of Asians so that, how does that come up, especially for the designers? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I will say it's encouraging when so theater, we are embracing that maybe we should be telling stories that are not just about like rich white families in their rich white beach house. And that's exciting that more of those stories are happening, like not those stories, but everything else that is considered diverse. It's just, it gets a little tricky when you look around on the design team. It's like, okay, I am the brown person on the team. I am the Asian person on the team. And we are telling this story, this diverse story, and I'm the only diverse person on this team. Oh no, am I the keeper of cultural competency? Oh dear, well, that's not reflected in my paycheck. And I'm also investing more emotional labor in this now, because inevitably those questions will go to you. It's very tricky when you look around and you're telling a story about, Black life, Black culture, and you look around and you're the only person of color. And for me, it's like, I'm not Black. And that's probably kind of a side conversation to this, worth digging into. But I think I was talking the other week about like it's really tricky when you look up and you realize you're the only person of color on the team, and you wonder like, oh no, am I suddenly the dramaturg of this? Yeah.
I wish I had the guts to speak up more in situations like this. I work with Beverly Jenkins on Hadestown, and when she was working on another show, I won't name it, there was some dialogue about like a Black family, and she was like, "No, like that's not right." And she just like spoke up and was like, "Here's some alternate lines." And I was like, "That, like I wish I had that in me to just be to do that." I did a reading where there was like a Korean dad with a terrible accent, and I just like would go to my theater at night crying because I didn't know what to say about it. So, yeah.
And I've been a part of a few shows about South Asian families where inevitably, it's always during the preview process, the playwright is asked by producers to code switch a little to, you're talking about, I don't want to give away the show, but like there's a dessert is mentioned in a show, and like, the playwright never gets into what the dessert is, but they're like talking about, it's this dessert. And so finally it's like second or third night of previews, we have producers going like, audiences don't really know what the dessert is. So maybe can you put in a paragraph where you really explain the dessert? And I was really proud of this playwright, because they were just like, I'm not doing that, because that goes into code switching. And what you're saying is white audiences don't understand what this dessert is, and I don't care. What they need to know is that it's freaking delicious, and it's something they will go on and on about for a while. But I'm not gonna like stop and be like, So everyone, this Indian dessert is this. And I was like, I was so proud of this person for not code switching.
One of the things as a production manager is being part of the process to put together creative teams. So like on the other side of it, you know, as we're trying to find different voices to make a collective team, very often, so this cultural specificity, it's like, okay, I can't find a specific designer, but it's almost like, are we part of creating this issue, right? Of just finding somebody who fits into the BIPOC category to have some representation on the creative team. You know, Shaminda as a production manager too, like I don't know if you run into this too, because I feel such a tension between the two things. I don't want it to be a team of all the same, and yet this thing of like, does then the burden fall onto one person to disrupt misguided conversations or something that's not correctly represented on stage because they're part of the team? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. You know, I feel that tension and that duality as well quite a bit, Audrey. And you know, I don't know if there's any, you know, one right way, you know, solution, but it does need to be a part of the conversation, right? Because so often, you know, the current paradigm that some might even try to call progressive is that, you know, when you're doing a show by a Black author with a Black director about the Black experience, then you need to put together a Black design team. Or similarly for an Asian story, you got to put together an Asian team. And to some degree, that speaks to their cultural understanding to be able to bring to the design and evoke a specificity. At the same time, it's been used to relegate people just to doing those shows. Like those are the only things that they're invited to do, because A, there's so few of them, and B, you know, they aren't then invited to work on the less culturally specific or maybe even white culture productions, and so it's been a real struggle, you know, and talking with a lot of friends of both wanting to do that work and help lift up and support that work, but also not wanting to get pigeonholed and as if that's the only work that you as an Asian American you can or will or should be doing. So it's really tricky. At the same time, like, how do we support a mixed team that we intentionally want to push back on that, but at the same time want to lift up? Do they have enough cultural understanding to properly lift up this work and support this work? And if they don't, what are the resources and support that we need to put in around them to make that happen? I think those are the conversations that we need to be having even before we talk about putting people together in a room.
And you know, I just want to jump in quickly, Shaminda, and that I think is so a few of the things you said really, I think, sounded great. Like, I think that it is very hard to sort of program and to give the right respect and diligence and to make sure that everything is represented. But it's the work outside of just hiring the team that I think is very crucial. And I'm happy you talked about that, because I've been hired to do plays about the Black experience in America, Black experience in the world, which or the Latinx experience and the Indian experience. And I grew up in Brooklyn, as I mentioned, so I can identify with being marginalized in my own way, but I can't also dramaturg what it is on a larger scale into a different ethnic group or racial group. I have sort of macro connections, but I don't have the lived-in connections that I think the plays demand and they ask for, and the reason that they're being done. But I think that what you said is really important about how we educate the organization from the top down through the designers and the performers, so that, you know, if I were to come in and do a play that is not necessarily about my group or my background, you know, I'm willing to do the work to learn and to be part of that. And I think, and the organization should be as well, because ultimately I think that that is the goal. I mean, that's the only way to service the intent of the writing. So, you know, I commend that, you know, I commend sort of that initiative.
Yeah, I think designers are a little different from the performers, right? Like our how we look like shouldn't be the making a decision of like who can get to tell the story, which story. It's for example, like if I when I designed something, it's the story about the Japanese internment camp related story, I still have to do deep research, and I have to learn about the history of how and why it happened, or like the story of those Japanese American immigration to, but that's not quite my story. Yes, part of my family experienced that, so that like emotionally, like I feel like I could connect pretty strongly to tell this story. But at the same time, like I designed something like Tennessee Williams, or like American Victorian play, or like Three Musketeers, and then like I feel like designers should have those ability to design many different types of stories and cultural background things. So it is tricky to me that I think intention of the why we are telling this story now is really heavily related. And then sometimes like my experience, like I get a phone call to do the show, like, you know, get the offer, or like, are you interested in this show? And then I think like, why this is coming to me and how? And when I feel like, oh, I think they need to mix the color, or like they need to diverse this team, and then my name was on the list. Or Mikiko is like really good at this, and then like I think Mikiko's like personality, or like myself can really connect to this story, and that's very different hiring. And then I feel it, and then I need, like I hope like I always can choose the right one, or like I can avoid those not so great intention one to me. Because like whenever I feel that way, but yet like this is really great opportunity for me, and I take it, and then I go through miserable experience. Yeah.
That's such good wisdoms. You know, we also lightly touched about this a couple weeks ago of, did I get hired as the production manager of this company because I am an awesome production manager, or because I check a couple boxes, right? That it's, oh, you're going to get this job because, you know, you're a diverse pick, and they're going to pick you. And that is so misguided. And I really loved Cherie's response. So I'm going to call on Cherie to jump in on this.
Yeah, I hate that, you know, when someone who's very insecure about themselves just lets it fly. They're like, "Oh, of course you got the job." Like, they're looking for you. No, like, first of all, if you say that in front of me, I'll never hire you unless you learn. Second of all, you know, like, it I hate that, because personally, I wanna be hired because I'm good, right? And if you do hire me just because I fit some whatever, or just because your uncle's, like, the head of the theater, everyone has their in. But what makes you stay in there is that you're good. Like, if you're not good, they're not gonna keep rehiring you. And the other thing I do like to say is that I check all the boxes, but I like break through them. It's so stupid, but I love that of like, yeah, I'll check your boxes, but you know what? Like, I'm not just what's in them. Like, every one of us is so much more than that.
There's a question that I want to call up that came up in the comments. So, is there more that a white ally can do in situations such as speaking up when something is clearly not accurate, like an accent, when we aren't the producer, director, high decision maker, if I'm a production electrician in a production meeting, how can I give voice to a problem that Cherie may see but isn't ready to speak up for a number of reasons? What do y'all think?
I'll go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so what I would offer is absolutely there is more. I'll acknowledge there's tremendous pressure against speaking up, and that is the first thing that I think we need to combat. Right? It is really easy to be silent, regardless of whether you know what to say or not. The default is to be silent, right? And silence, as I am learning in my journey, has been just as much a purveyor and supporter of racism and oppression as any of the more outspoken racist and oppressionists that we might see, right? Those in the majority, those with privilege who remain silent, right? So first and foremost, you got to find a way to speak. You got to, and it's probably going wrong, right? That's the pressure that's going to come back at you. But just finding that voice to speak up and get that practice, that's the one thing you could do. The second thing I would say is to back it up with some analysis. Right, like it's not just about then speaking up. It's like, what are you speaking up about, and why, and can you speak to the issues at hand, as opposed to just raising a blanket. Oh, I think this might be racist, or I think this might be sexist or misogynist. Everybody needs to do their own individual research and learning and journey to understand better from themselves first, without them, asking the people of color, without asking marginalized communities to A, speak up, and then B, educate everybody else on why this is a problematic situation we have in front of us. So find the courage to speak up, and as you do, educate yourself. Those would be the two things I would say to do first.
Love it. Thank you.
Just to like piggyback on that, like just speaking up. I know it's so tough, but speaking up, it means the world to me. Because I think we were talking about this the other week. Like there have been too many situations where we've all been in the room and like a thing happens, a yucky thing happens, an offensive thing happens, and I'm like, I wonder if someone else is gonna speak up. Oh no, it's gonna be me yet again. Here we go. And it's like every time. And it would be really nice if more nice white people would go, you know what? I'm going to say something. But I get it. Like that first step, yeah, just speaking, it is so tough. It's kind of easier said than done. But I guess I have no like concrete, like, here's how you do it. But it'd be really nice if more people did it.
Yeah, I've been the only person of color in a room, and I've witnessed something that happened, and I, to be perfectly frank with everybody, am fearful of speaking up sometimes because of where my station is and sort of the way the industry works, where I'm a freelancer and I need to work, and sort of you don't want to quote unquote rock the boat too much, and there is fear that is there's fear that is tied into that, and I now regret all those times I didn't. And so I'm trying to train myself to not be so shy, to be shy about it. And I think that Elisheba is right in that it's also difficult to be the person of color who's also speaking up for the thing that is offensive. Puts a lot of onus and a lot of pressure on us, on people who are interpreting. Like, we are also not interpreters of what is racist or what is insensitive. We can't, we only know what we feel. But if you also feel the same thing, then it's, as a human being, you have to speak up as well. And the more people who do, sort of, the less wrought, the less pressure or the less fear there will be for others to speak up.
I am so agree with you guys, and but I have to admit, my cowardness, I'm so afraid of speaking up, all the time, always. And also, something happens, and then like shock comes to me, but like I don't have a quick analysis of like what just happened. And then like half days later, or like that night, or like next day, or like when I'm in bed, I'm like, oh shit, that's what it was. And then like it was so difficult to identify for me. Like I felt really kind of negative, and then I feel really not right, but like I couldn't speak up, and then like it might have been too late to speak up, or like it's just that has been my experience of my own. And then yes, like I think education and then try to learn, I believe helps, and then like I needed to put the effort myself, but like same time, a daily action you can make by not in those moments, but like for example, like when I have a chance to hire assistant, or like chance to talk to my student in class or something about that, and then like those kind of effort can be done too for anyone, like everyday action.
Yeah, I think with that it's so hard to do, but I think it's okay to sit in that uncomfortableness that you're feeling, because I'm fucking feeling it. Sorry, I cursed. We're feeling it. Like, welcome to our life, right? So sit with that feeling of uncomfortableness and realize what it's like, and then be brave enough to say it's something small. Hey, can you explain that? Oh, I don't get it. What did you say? Make that uncomfortableness show itself. Yeah.
And to piggyback some more, so off of what y'all were just saying, like Audrey, I know you're really big into like martial arts and like working out and stuff. And I know you wouldn't try like some like crazy move right out the gate. Like you're going to work up to it. I'm totally calling Audrey out here, but like you're going to like work up to a new like physical move, because your muscles are not like toned and ready for that. And I think about that, like, speaking up when these like crappy things happen in theater, it's a muscle you have to exercise. Like within society, we are conditioned to, and this is like American society, and I've been thinking more and more about this, and this is, I think, tough for me to vocalize just right now, but like within Asian society, Asian American society, we are conditioned to not speak up, to not rock the boat. And I know, my parents came here, and I don't think they necessarily told me like, Elisheba, just shut up. But there was very much like we move through life and we don't rock the boat. And I have, a lot of us, it's like we're here and we need to assimilate. And when you assimilate, you don't rock the boat. And so that goes like for Asian folks, but also, thinking about how to be a good white ally. I think it's like a muscle you have to exercise. So maybe you don't go like right out the gate being like, I think it's like kind of baby steps to exercise, tone those muscles.
And I think there's... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I just wanted to ask you all a question about like, so when you are in tech, everybody's quite stressed out, and then like you have certain like days or like hours to make the show happen and open. And then something could occur because like those times like all the human comes out, right? Like, and because everybody's stressed out and they cannot cover up, and always like some sort of stressed out situation, like something crazy come up, and then like you have to choose, right? Like especially like lighting designer, sound designer, or costume designers who have to make the decisions in those moments. Set designers just sometimes just sit there, but like, what do you advise, or like what do you do? Like you have only the time, you are ticking the time, and then like something happens, and then is my question clear? Like,
well, like I think your question's about like in the heat of the moment. That's where we're kind of our most, I don't know if most human is the word, but we go to like some real basic instinct kind of stuff. And yeah, I've thought about this a lot. Like, I mean, a lot of it, you know, in the heat of the moment, you don't want to be a dick to everyone. So how do you work on that? And I think it's actually like kind of working on yourself before the heat of the moment. It's like, okay, sometimes in tech, I'm a dick. I should work on that. Well, let me go to therapy regularly and talk through some things. And let me, you know, it really helps me to like, you know, run a mile or two before I start my day. And that really helps with the whole being a dick thing. I don't know if that answered the question at all, but like, you know, definitely like in the heat of the moment, that's where some of our like most like basic primal things come out. And yeah, especially for like lighting and sound designers, I feel like a lot of times we set the tone for the room, and stage managers can set the tone for the room quite a bit. So if you have, you know, any one of those people just like viciously angry, yeah, the room gets really weird very quickly.
One of the strategies I have, and I specifically call it strategy, is building relationships and co-conspirators before we get to that difficult moment. Because sometimes it's not my turn to speak up, but I know something's happened, and you know I'm texting so-and-so to say, do you want to take this one? Because sometimes my voice is not heard. So if I'm the one who always says, hey, yo, no good, then it's, you know, I feel like, you know, we talk a lot about resilience in this work and being able to pace ourselves. And part of it is like throwing the ball to somebody else. So like the more allies and more co-conspirators that you can develop around you, I think then everybody takes turns to disrupt what might have just happened. It doesn't always need to fall on you. Like sometimes I have a strong relationship with somebody that even a glance across the room, you know, like, whoa, what was that? So, you know, you're going to say something? Am I going to say something? So actually really centering community is both strategic, but also important for self-care, I think. That's my, like, before I walk into a difficult moment, a difficult meeting, or, you know I can't go in without anybody that doesn't have my back. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's totally makes sense. Yeah. So I in every way, the process is quite important to get to those stressful moments, the time of tech, I think. Or it's just an example, but yeah, makes sense.
Mikiko, I would also just quickly add, you know, this example you're bringing up is an expression of how the characteristics of a sense of urgency and quantity over quality force us into, you know, further silence and further marginalizing and further taking on harm, you know, in service of the work and keeping up the, you know, the norms of the culture. And what other strategies that we might consider is expanding that timeline a little bit, you know, also reflecting on what you offered before. I'm also a slow processor, right? So when things happen in the moment, I don't know, it takes me time to reflect, it takes me a lot of time to think of a response. And something that Nicole Brewer has been really instrumental in helping me understand is that if the framework that she offers in terms of harm reduction, harm repair, and harm reduction, harm prevention, and relationship repair can be thought of as a continuum, it doesn't all have to happen in that moment, right? So harm might happen in a moment. People may need time, regardless if you have the time to address it. You still may need time to circle back to it and get back to it. And doesn't mean that the moment is lost, because harm tends to sit with us for a while. So getting back to it the next day or a few days later, using those techniques that Cherie offered of like, hey, did that feel funky to you? It felt funky to me, right? Can we talk about that? May help. And Nicole has been really, really powerful in my journey in understanding that, because of how I identify and how I have to process things.
We have a question just popped up. What are some good responses to cisgendered white men in the industry who are performing allyship, but behind the scenes say things like, I'll never be able to work again since I'm not BIPOC?
Yeah, so I'm going to raise my hand on this one because we were talking about this the other week, and I've had, it's always these cisgendered white guys, seemingly liberal white guys who, I'm in sound design, and it's a very like white male dominated industry, and I have a lot of white dudes around me, and I've heard several times, sometimes to my face and sometimes behind my back. But like to my face, like, oh, must be nice to be a brown lady doing sound and music right now because you will just have your pick of the jobs. And, it happens. And I think, Mikiko, you were talking about like when these things happen, there's like a moment of like shock. You're like still, because it's just like, you're in disbelief. I can't believe you just said this crappy thing to me. And it is. It's like it's a really crappy thing. Like if you are a cisgendered white guy watching this who considers yourself an ally, like don't say crap like that. It is so hurtful on like a very deep level, because we're already thinking like maybe I only got this job because I'm Asian, because I'm brown. Like we're already going through any number of things to discount ourselves from the job, and then you just like say it, like that's not cool. But what I am saying more and more, like when that happens, still, it's just like how very interesting that you think, that like I'm taking away your jobs, that you're owed a job. You are owed nothing. This job, like how do you know it's just gonna go to you? And more and more, I'm also directly saying like I've been working at this for 15 years now. I've been working my ass off. I got this job fair and square. Leave me out of your white man pity party narrative. So those are some things I have and will continue saying. The big thing being like you were not owed this job. And just saying that is not cool what you just said.
Yeah, I strongly echo and whatever everything Elisheba said. But other things like it's not an us versus you relationship. There's no like it's not a competition. And I think that it's easy to move into that in this industry, but I think that largely this industry needs to sort of move away from that logic. But I don't know if there's anything specific to say, but it's just not, it's not an us versus you situation. You get things that are offered to you and I get things that are offered to me. And when you single me out, or you single people like me out for progression because of the color of who we are, our background, it significantly perpetuates the larger problem. I don't know if there's anything that could be said for me right now in the moment to completely combat that, but it maybe Shaminda's right. Maybe in a day or two, when you feel more comfortable and you're talking yourself down from it, it's worth bringing. What you said to me, what you said, and what I've heard you say is not allyship. It's not. If what you're doing is hurtful to me and to yourself and the industry and people like and other different groups, and you have to understand that. And then if they continue to want to say that, you can't control them, but it's a tricky thing for sure.
I was having dinner with two white, very established designers and me after tech or something, or tech dinner break, and then they start talking about that. Like these days, I've been doing this job in this theater for like how many years, because that was kind of annually happens. And then, but this year, they asked if they know any BIPOC designer or something. It's just like they casually start talking about that, and then we are having dinner, and then do you know I'm in complete opposite side of your conversation, and then and I was actually surprised about them having conversation in front of me about those two white men who's quite established, and they are not, they maybe worry about they're not getting a job, or they're not going to have the job, but argument becoming more about those teamwork, we all have some relationship to the director, or same team, and work together very well and develop how we work together and things like that. And then well, let's say theater company or producer breaking those team and then asking them to bring new people in the group and team. And then that became the argument among three of us. And then it was kind of a difficult conversation because like two white men versus and me. And then like me kind of, I explained to them like me trying to get into those like, really great team as an outsider, but like trying to have the opportunity to shine. And then like, is that bad? Or like, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like I had that experience and like I couldn't finish that conversation. I felt like I lost the conversation. And also like that was the chance for me to talk to those people, those designers too, about like how important for people who weren't given the chance as they were. And yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you. That sucks. And it's not your job to educate them either and for you to take on that responsibility. And one of my favorite things that I love is RBG, who was like, when will you be happy with how many women there are in the Supreme Court? And she said, when there are 9. It's always been white men. Always. In every field that we've seen.
I want to. One of the topics that we talked about was as Asian people, how do we center Black lives and lift our Black colleagues up? And that in a lot of Asian culture, and speaking for myself and my family, there's a lot of anti-Blackness, and that's very difficult. For me, I mean, I call up my family all the time and it's very uncomfortable for them. And now in this moment, what are your thoughts on that?
Audrey, I think this has been a big part of my journey, particularly over the last year. And as I've reflected on my past and had to reckon with the ways I've been marginalized and the challenges that I've overcome. Also within that, to also lift up and recognize the significant amount of skin privilege that I also have. And that it is not just about overcoming barriers and challenges that I've had. It's about leveraging my own privilege in service of others, and particularly those from the Black community and Indigenous community who have a much longer history in this country of being marginalized, and being really real with the fact, as you said, that anti-Blackness is a global issue. It's not an American paradigm. It's not a U.S. paradigm. It is a global issue that are keeping folks down all over the world, and I've certainly seen it in my family, in my culture, in my workplace environments, and we owe it to ourselves as an Asian community to help and lift up those more marginalized than us, because it will only help everybody. But we do, I think, and similar in that previous question, it's a question of privilege and recognizing the privilege that we have and our proximity to Blackness, and then leveraging that privilege in service of helping those without.
And to add on to that, it's and I don't know if we're gonna have time to really go into this, but we talked the other week about the model minority myth and how, being Asian in this country, like that is such a big part of how a lot of us grew up, and our proximity to whiteness, how a lot of us, had this mentality of assimilate. If you assimilate, you will succeed in this country. And I think there has to be a lot of unlearning of that. And it's because it's not. Yeah, I think a lot of us, to kind of no matter what your American story is, what your immigration story is, if you were born here, etc. Like we all are a part of that narrative. Yeah, so there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do, and I've definitely seen, some of us innocently, piggyback on this movement for Black lives, especially that happened this summer. And it's like, no, we actually have to be careful about not like piggybacking on it. Like, this is a movement for Black lives. And we can and should be doing our own things too, but we have to like first and foremost center that movement. We can't just like glom onto it. Yeah, but there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do. And yeah, just to piggyback off of what Shaminda said, like there's a lot of there's just like a lot of education we have to be doing. We have to admit that, that anti-Blackness is something that is like very much a part of Asian communities. And we have to be talking to our aunties about that. We have to be having those hard conversations. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. Like, I think that's really true. Like, we have to, it's just like Black Lives Matter is the movement, and then like, I'm kind of like, that's good to, because I just read the article about Asian fragility exist, and it's totally exist. And when I was reading this article, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, yes, like, this like immediate offensiveness, like I get like have, or like what about me feeling like, yes, like racism against Asian people exist, but like I think it's not the completely separate issue. It exists, but like I think we have to uplift to this movement of like Black Lives Matter and a Black story to be centered, and then like Black artists to be centered. And I think that's quite important. And yes, I feel like if we can work on that, I think everybody else's life gets better too. Yeah.
There is a question in the chat that I just want to call up. On the opposite side of the spectrum, how do you use your Asianness to get jobs?
I mean,
Well,
I don't.
it's not Asianness. We are Asians.
I feel, okay, so like, like if King and I is coming to Broadway and I want to work on it, like I kind of submit my resume, but I'm not like, hey, I'm Asian. Hey, you should hire me just because I'm Asian. Most of the time I'm like, hey, I'm really good at my job. Like, please take my resume. I would love to be a part of the show that represents my people. Or
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, if there's something that I've heard of that is coming up and I culturally identify with it, I want to work on that because I feel like I, as an artist, can bring something to the realization of it. But I don't think that I sort of wear it on my sleeve when I go into a normal meet and greet in any way. Maybe that's not what you mean, but I don't know if I leverage it. It's even if I was, I'd be very self-conscious and aware of it. It's a tricky thing. I don't know if I'd want to. Yeah, I don't. I feel, but I will say I was up for a show a year ago or something about an Indian musical about Bhangra, and like my family loves Bhangra, and like I was the only time I was like, I know it. Like we grew up with it very closely, and that's the only time I did it, and then I didn't get it, so it doesn't matter. So there's that little side.
But also that like other things we can say about backstage people is like we have outside eye to other culture too. Like, and then like I think one of my mentor said that to me once, like when I was designing Tennessee Williams, like why am I doing Tennessee Williams? Because like my classmates are like from South and like they know the world better. And then like he said, like sometimes outsiders can see better. Look at the research, and that's how he taught me how to really look at the research. And then like that taught me quite a bit. Like, and then like I feel like that's true too. Like sometimes outside eye can see into other culture sometimes better, or like I think that's true too. I mean, am I contradicting this conversation? I don't know, but I kind of believe that.
Unfortunately, I feel like we can continue talking for another whole hour, and I think we're really hitting our hour right now. So we did want to leave with some joy, and maybe I'll throw the ball at Shaminda to to give us some wisdom, and maybe everybody should shout out what gives you joy as a closeout for this. For me, food is a big part of my family and my culture, and so delicious food gives me a lot of joy. Smelling foods in the kitchen. So, popcorn to Shaminda.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you to everyone. This has been delightful. Without a doubt, joy in my life, it comes from my wife and my baby girl. It's just a delight to be around them, but also particularly around this work that we're doing. Have discovered joy in community, and we Audrey and I were part of a BIPOC PM group that was meeting over the summer, and just being in the same space, virtual space with those fantastic humans just brought us a lot of life and spirit and joy. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to all of you. Oh, sorry, popcorn it too, yeah. Cherie.
Yeah, I thank you for this amazing conversation. I feel like a lot of these conversations now that are happening and these Zooms are bringing me a lot of joy to bring people together to talk about common experiences and to educate people in that, and also food. Like, my favorite thing was bringing a box of bacon to tech and just handing that out at like 11 in the morning to all the guys. And it's great. It's nice sharing it. I'm going to popcorn it to Makiko.
I like the bacon tech. I want to be in your tech. Yes, like I think Zoom is reconnecting to my old friend and also new friend. And then the funny thing is, like, I met many new friends with those conversations, and I never met them in person. And so I'm so looking forward to meet those people who I became friends through Zoom. And yeah, so that's the joy right now. But being in this group with you are very much joy to me. I mean, thank you so much.
Elisheba, you want to go?
Yeah. Something that's bringing me joy of late. You know, I had a baby 2 weeks into the pandemic, and she brings me joy quite a bit. But like recently, she's learning words. She's like saying words, so we're like hearing her little voice, and that's like fascinating to watch a little creature like develop a physical voice. And so now she can say agua for water, but she says that afga, and I tried to correct her yesterday. I go agua, and she looks at me, she goes afga, and I was like, right, 11-month-old, you're right and I'm wrong. That's hilarious. Amith.
That is terribly cute. Conversations like these, I think, have been conversations that I mentioned earlier, I shied away from a long time, and now I'm very happy, and I'm finding joy in meeting other people and being part of panels like this to speak out and to speak up about it and to create more awareness and understanding. So I find joy in that. I think that in this pause, I think there's some work happening and some good work happening, so that when we all come back, hopefully it's a different landscape.
Thank you, everyone. What a wonderful, wonderful hour, and inspirational to think of things in some new ways. The whole concept of how we support one another as a muscle was just astounding. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone who's been with us. USITT's community conversations are supported through membership dollars and through the Tanisha Jefferson Fund for Inclusion. This fund supports USITT's efforts in equity, diversity, and inclusion across our industry. Be on the lookout for more community conversations as they're announced. And I invite you all to go to usitt.org, where you can register for our annual conference, where our opening keynote speaker in our virtual conference, Monday, March the 8th, is none other than Audrey Hoo. So we're very excited to have Audrey helping us open this conference where we talk about how we stay informed, inspired, and energized as we work towards the biggest opening of theater that we've all looked forward to in our careers. So thank you all, and thank you everyone who has joined us, and we wish you all the best safety and health. Goodbye.